Just tuck this under here, just in case.
Yep, thank you.
All right, folks, I think we're ready. It's about time. Welcome to tonight's author talk at the Historical and Genealogical Society of Indiana County. Tonight, we're actually going to hear from Jim Sagan, who has just authored a new book on an incredibly relevant topic to Indiana County history. So the tale chronicles a family's journey to this area, like many other families did back during the early days of the county. And so he has quite a few interesting parts to it, and we'll see what he has to say. So, Jim, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. I want to especially thank Jonathan and Elaine and their committee for inviting me and organizing this event. What the book is, it's a journey that depicts the journey of a Celtic family in British America that entwines with American history. It's an inspiring story of the Robinson family, from their arrival in Philadelphia through their journey to acquire and settle their own plantations. The story follows the struggles and the hardships, starting with their lives afresh in a new and unknown land, while struggling for a foothold, sometimes just to survive. They become participants in many what would become American historical events. The story focuses on Robert and Isabella Robinson and their family over the first 3 generations as they become Americans through building plantations, forts, families, participating in battles, the militia, even a rebellion. This book describes the journey in 3 parts, but it also details the individual stories during those journeys. One of the main themes of this book is quoted from a Robinson family document dated 1881. And this quote, "These families remained near each other, tarrying from Lancaster and Dauphin counties, and finally to Big Sewickley in Westmoreland County." Now keep in mind, Indiana County was considered Westmoreland County until 1803. So a lot of these events were late 1700s. The family was patriotic, and the men served during the American Revolutionary War. Robert, his older brother William, and his brother-in-law Samuel Weir served in the Lancaster County militia under Colonel Alexander Lowry. Robert was with the 3rd Battalion, 2nd Company. William served in the 6th Battalion, 4th Company. And Samuel served in the 6th Battalion, 5th Company as a 1st Lieutenant. The youngest brother, John, served as a frontier ranger in Westmoreland County from 1778 until his death in 1782. Robert, William, and Samuel were at the Battle of Brandywine, protecting George Washington's left flank, and then participated in the Battle of Germantown. And then they all became frontier rangers in Westmoreland County for the remainder of the war. Robert and Samuel also did guard duty along the Pennsylvania and Virginia border. So if you see in the book, on page 1011, this is the passenger list that when they arrived in Philadelphia on July 25th, 1770. This passenger list is from the ship named the Phoenix, and it's very informative. It actually changed the beginning of the narrative of the story. A lot of times when the immigrants came to British America, they came as a family of 4, a family of 2, a family of 6, and they were going to meet their other family members in British America, or they were going to trailblaze for the rest of the family to come with them. This tells you a different story. It's amazing one document, what stories are involved just on that. First of all, this document was found amongst 8 boxes and stored in a corner of a storage building at the Pennsylvania Historical Society in Philadelphia, and had not been digitized yet. In these boxes, there were 8 boxes, there were documents from the period of 1768 to 1772, and the passenger list showed that there was a total of 85 people that were paid. That is unusual, that there was 85 paid passengers. You got to remember the time period. This is 1770, the Irish famine. A lot of turmoil going over in Ireland. So for 85 paid passengers, it's amazing. The difficulty here, first of all, it's very difficult to find a passenger list, since British subjects did not need to be listed. Okay, so this was a find. Second, Robert and Rachel Robinson and their youngest, along with their youngest sister, I'll point out, Robert and Rachel. Now Robert's youngest sister, Levy, okay, and Rachel's younger brother, Samuel Weir, they're married, were on this, along with their 4 children. 3 children here, 1 child there, okay, and another child right there. So you have that, you have 2 families right there, okay? So you have another person, John Robinson, right here. John's story is, John came over in 1766, okay? He was the trailblazer. He went back to Ireland to get the rest of the family to come over on this boat. What's interesting is, how John got here was he committed a crime in London, and he was put on a boat for his crime. It was a petty crime. He got free passage to British America. All because he wanted to join his girlfriend. His girlfriend at the time was Margaret Jameson. Anybody recognize the Jameson name? From the Jameson Coal Company. Okay. Margaret came over with her family in 1764. Okay. So John and Margaret got married in 1766 when he arrived in British America on that. So he was the trailblazer on that. So the third unique thing about this is there's 23 other Weir family members on this boat. Okay? That is highly unusual for this time period on that. And I think what was interesting about it is because of the 85, and there was 23 members and all the Robinson family members, that nobody died because smallpox, yellow fever were prevalent. And a lot of passengers died during the journey on that. That didn't happen. So when they got over here, that's what changed the narrative, is because I thought Robert and Rachel were leading the pack. Okay? That wasn't the case here. They were following the Weirs. And when they landed in Philadelphia, most of the Weir family went to Virginia. The Robinsons and Sam Weir and Levy Weir went to Lancaster County. So that kind of changed, how everything happened just on that journey and the destinations and the journeys of those families. So, some little document like that is amazing, the story it could tell. And the fact that this is an oldest document dated 1770, the condition of it is fantastic, that you could still read the names on that. So we got an interesting story that moving on here is that in 1803, James Robinson, who is the youngest son of Robert Robinson, and this happened in Indiana County. Well, actually, it happened in Armstrong County, Westmoreland County first. What James did is, his wife died in 1803. That year, he bought 300 acres from a gentleman named Jacob Wolfe, who was also a patriot. Okay? But what happened was Jacob Wolfe didn't own the property. Okay? And you'll see the highlighted events in that in March 1776, a warrant, there's three phases to getting land here. You issue a warrant. The warrant authorizes you to get a survey. You get the survey done, you submit the survey, and you get a patent. A patent we would consider a deed today on that. So on March 26, 1776, a warrant was issued for 300 acres of land to Henry Hill, Henry Hill. So 10 years later, another warrant was issued to Jacob Wolfe for the same 300 acres, okay? Because Henry Hill didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to the land, so Jacob Wolfe thought, it's available. So in 1788, a survey was performed 2 years after a warrant was issued, but according to later documents, Jacob Wolfe never returned the survey to the survey office in order to get a patent issued. So what he did, you'll see here, that Henry Hill basically did all that work. But later on, you'll see it took 26 years for this to get resolved. In 1828, a survey was performed by Henry Hill again, based on a warrant issued back March 26, 1776. And that survey was issued or sent back to the Surveyor General that same day. It noted on the land the survey was previously surveyed and it was appropriated by Jacob Wolfe. Okay? So anyway, it means he was trying to take it. So in other words, Jacob Wolfe took possession of the 300 acres that Henry Hill had, and he sold it to James Robinson, who died and bequeathed it to his two brothers and father. That's where all the confusion lies. Okay? So in June 1829, 300 acres were resurveyed. In July, the final patent was issued to the heirs of James Robinson. Now here's an interesting twist. Jacob Wolfe was a patriot. He's an ancestor of my brother-in-law. And that Jacob Wolfe is the same ancestor that got my brother-in-law into the Sons of American Revolution. So that's kind of a current day twist to that story on that. So it's quite interesting on that. That's one of the stories in the book. Another story is we have Samuel Weir and the Whiskey Rebellion. Okay? If you know anything about the Whiskey Rebellion, it was basically started down Pigeon Creek. If you know where Pigeon Creek is, it's on Route 88 in Pittsburgh. It's a small town. So there's no doubt that Samuel was part of it. A lot of times the leaders of the Whiskey Rebellion were officers of the Washington's Continental Army. Samuel being a lieutenant, he was part of that. And in Pigeon Creek, how it started, to give you a little background, is a lot of the men dressed up in women's clothes attacked the tax collector and tarred and feathered him. Okay? Now, Pigeon Creek is not big. Even today, it's not that big. So, no doubt that Samuel was in that crowd on that. But there's some interesting facts to note are that after Samuel died, an inventory of his assets showed that he had a substantial amount of whiskey-making equipment and many sizes of whiskey barrels. So, and then this is an example, his grandson submitted a voucher to his estate for reimbursement of a barrel of whiskey that was his, that his grandfather sold without him knowing and without his approval. So Samuel was into the whiskey making pretty good on that. And the third part is Samuel made several loans to other farmers in the area, and he had a large amount of cash at his house. So that told you that he was one of the profitable whiskey makers in the area on that. So that's again, that's a lot of research in regards to finding this information and going down here, going down this the route in the book, one of the few stories. Okay, what you'll read also is about the Robinson Strong House. Okay, it was a fort. If anybody knows where the corner of Elders Ridge Road is and Nowrytown Road is, I think there's an auto repair shop there now. That was called the Robinson Strong House. And it was registered in the Western Pennsylvania Historical Forts for Indiana County on that. So there's a story, and then the story is once it became a non-fort, it was now the first schoolhouse in southwestern Indiana County on that. And there's a picture in the book of the most recent version, because the original fort burnt down and it was rebuilt on that. So there's another thing, well, you'll see how big the Robinson district is. Thousands of acres. And this is in the southwest portion of Indiana County now. This will be the cemetery and several of the Robinsons. The fort would be right here, right at the corner. This is Elder Ridge Road, Nowrytown Road. So here was the blockhouse on that. It survived for over 100 years on that. Now, one of the other things in the book is that I'm working on, along with Chuck Colton here, is the Robinson River Hill Cemetery. You'll see that located right here. Kiskiminis River comes down right there. And this was established in 1794 on a small piece of land owned by Robert Robinson, which he called the York. The old cemetery is no longer used, has not had a burial there in over 175 years. And the land on which the cemetery is located was originally deeded to Robert Robinson as part of the 210 acres warranted on February 25th, 1786. It overlooks the Kiskiminis River on the western side of the property, and the first burial occurred in September 1795. And continued to about 1848. You'll see this is the list of documented people that are still at the River Hill Cemetery. The story here, well, let me go back here. It's documented that Robert Robinson, who is also an American Revolutionary patriot, he was buried in 1836, as you see right there. Last name. But the other family, the Keir family. If you're familiar with that name, they are the ancestors of Andrew Keir, who invented kerosene and then later sold the patent to John D. Rockefeller on that. So there's four members of the Keir family in this, and you could tell by the survey we've done is there's 4 plots, 15 feet, and then there's 7 plots for the Robinson. And all the headstones are about 4 foot apart. Now there's about 17 stones there. So it could be, it's a combination of headstone, footstone, and they're all facing west to the river, which is typical of that era. The graves are marked with filled stones, no names. Just to give you an idea, this will give you an idea of what they look like. Headstone, footstone, headstone, footstone. Just to give you an idea. It took us, thanks to Chuck and Jack McGuire, back in 2019, we traveled up to this site, and it's a very challenging location. You got on the west, 200 feet cliff down to the river. On the south side, there's another 150-foot bluff. On the north side, you got a 60-foot bluff. And on the east side, there's probably about a mile trek, logging trail that you could walk, but it's not too safe either. So we usually take the southern route and switch back up the side of the hill on that. Today, you know, the burial, as you said, the burial ground and the graves are marked, filled stones, no inscriptions, no legible markings. In 1848, several headstones of the Robinson family were moved to Edgewood Cemetery. These are the headstones that marked who that person was, and they can be seen today at Edgewood. However, the bodies are still at River Hill, only because the caskets were too deteriorated to move. So all they moved were the headstones itself. We had a gravekeeper from Pennsylvania last fall there identifying locations of the other bodies. So we've came up with 35 locations now on that. So we're hoping that in the future we do ground penetrating radar to get positive identification of where all the bodies are in this location. So it's quite an interesting, quite a challenge job to get this done, and it's kind of seasonal too, because like I said, one challenge is getting there. Second challenge is Mother Nature. Mother Nature likes to take over the site on that. So here's another picture. That's probably the biggest headstone we've found to date. As you see, there's no inscription on that. But usually at that era, it was common practice to identify with fieldstones, no markings, since this was the frontier. Okay, there's no engraving tradesmen, and usually the headstones, the bigger the headstones marked the more important citizen. Tiny stones marked children. And they're all facing west towards the sunset. And that's typical of the era. There's no standard height or width. There's no solid relationship between the importance of the deceased or the size of the head or footstone. So the cemetery's been an interesting history, and it's detailed in my book. And it has a history in regards to, if you go back, I'll go back here to the list, if you want to follow the dates. So the first burial was 1795, Andrew Keir. What happened here is on May 29, 1798, Robert Robinson sold 64 acres to a Thomas Hinman for £50. Mistakenly, the burial grounds were included in the sale of the land, and it was not identified as a burial ground in the documents of sale. Here's where it gets complicated. Thomas Hinman died in 1803, and the land and all his assets were assigned to a local attorney named Jacob Frick to be the guardian of his estate. Since the law at the time was that Hinman's widow could not own land and assets, and his children were considered minors. Now throw in the confusion, the sale of the land occurred in Armstrong Township, Westmoreland County. However, the deed was not recorded to 1807, 8 years after the sale, in Conemaugh Township, Indiana County. Okay, because Indiana County was established in 1803. So the estate of Thomas Himman was finally awarded by inquest of the Orphans Court to Jacob Frick in 1820. Jacob Frick then proceeded to sell the land where the cemetery was to a William Richardson in 1837. Now, if you look at it, Robert Robinson was buried there in 1836. So all that time period, people were still being buried there. The Robinsons, the Keers, did not know that they didn't own that land at that time. So upon discovery of the mistake at the burial ground parcel that he purchased, Mr. Richardson sold the 6.2 acre parcel of land for $15 to Samuel Robinson, who was the grandson of Robert Robinson, to William Ray, R-H-E-A, and Andrew Keir, the son of David Keir, who was buried here. The cemetery was then deeded on September 15, 1841, to a trust of Samuel Robinson, William Ray, and Andrew Keir. Now, it's assumed that the trust was for perpetual care of the burial ground, since there was no further conveyance of this piece of property since 1841. So the cemetery then became a multi-family burial ground and then became known as River Hill Cemetery. On that. Now, although I could not find any documented evidence, but sometime after 1882, the name was changed to Edrye Cemetery. There's stories about that the town of Edrye and the cemetery were destroyed by the flood, and that's probably true since Edrye was on the base of the river. But hopefully this was not Edrye Cemetery, because that means the waters were above 200 feet. So it had been worse than the Johnstown flood. So I think, you know, the hearsay and the myths and everything that this is Edrye can't be substantiated. So from that standpoint, we're going to call it River Hill, since that was the last known name on this. So it's been an interesting journey, and we still have some things to go. We're always looking for volunteers to come and hike up the trail with us, and unfortunately we can't take heavy equipment. It's all manual labor on that. So rakes, shovels, other hand tools that we need. Chuck has done metal detectors. We found nails. We found shotgun shells up there. So it's been an interesting find once we did. Originally, we didn't see this. The brush was probably about hip high, and we had to uncover and scrape down to the dirt to find these headstones. So it's been a challenge there. Luckily, it's not several hundred acres of land. It's a small. It's probably about a third of that 0.62 acres that we're looking at. It's not much. So the Robinson family story in the book is awe-inspiring courage and fortitude throughout the journey, and at the end, a legacy was established for future generations to continue to thrive and to prosper. They prospered. Robert S., the son of Robert Robinson, was a county commissioner here in Indiana County. He was also the sheriff at one point. The Robinson family owned about 11 buildings in Salzburg at one point in the mid-1850s. So they established and thrived, and maybe, you know, they had a legacy. As that one drawing showed, you know, they had a district. It was a huge district on that. So they were a family of importance from the late 1700s to the mid 1850s on that. But when Robert and his wife Rachel and brothers were making these decisions, there was many life-changing decisions that were made during the journey. From first deciding to leave Ireland, then to moving west to the frontier. But they kept moving forward. And the Robinson legacy and their place in American history fills the pages of the book. So I hope you enjoy reading the book and the stories, the individual stories. I found the journey in regards to researching and writing just inspiring, how these people just went after one hardship to another, from the deaths of their family. They just kept moving forward. And then they, the legacy they left with the fourth and fifth generations is unbelievable. So, but I appreciate you coming tonight. And any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
To fix it in my mind, when you talked about the bluffs, is it up where the Kiski School is above, across the river?
No.
And then over?
It's further down.
The other way?
Yeah, it's if you go, Salzburg, go to Salzburg, go 286
Yes,
to Norrietown.
yes, I know that.
Okay, and then it's on the mountain or the hill next to 286.
Okay.
It's up on that.
All right,
Actually,
I was thinking when I heard you Tuesday night, I was thinking it was over on the Kiski side.
no, actually, when you look out over the bluff, you see Avonmore.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I forgot what. Oh, the Keir family. When I grew up in Avonmore. I got to go swimming at a home by the Keirs between Salzburg and Avonmore. Are those? I assume they're ancestors.
I think they are, but I haven't researched the Keir family. I'm in contact with one of their ancestors, and she's starting to do some research. Now that she's retired, she's starting to do some research.
Porter used to live in California, but I don't know.
Some of the Keir, this particular branch of the Keir family, and the reason the Keirs were here is, in the Rays, they had the plantations or their farms right next to the Robinsons. So that's why they picked that burial ground, and that's why the three went into a trust. Is if you see, this district down here was called the Ray District, R-H-E-Y. I don't have it here, but that's what. And the Keirs had a farm up here, the plantation up there. So they were three families grouped together, and that's who used the burial ground at the time.
Well, my husband's family's connected some way along the line, later, of course.
Well, I've been finding a lot of, when I go to meetings like this, I meet new relatives, put it that way. Relatives I didn't know existed. And I'm finding in my research a lot of the ancestors. For example, Chuck and I, we have a match with the Marshall family. That's our connection on that. So you all may have heard Fergus Moorhead, the name Fergus Moorhead. He's a direct descendant of mine through Samuel Robinson's wife. That was her great-grandfather on that. Yes?
Did they have anything to do with the town of Robinson?
Unfortunately, no. That's another family on that. They didn't quite branch down that far. But if you're ever doing research on your ancestors, I'll give you a little tip. Read the obituaries. It's amazing what you find in the obituaries. And I'll give you a little quick story here is the sister of Robert Robinson named Jenny. She married Thomas Smith. Very common name, okay? I couldn't find much information about them. But I came up here, I was doing research, and I ran across a person named Jenny Robinson. She was the granddaughter of Jenny and Thomas Smith. And in her obituary gave the story of Jenny and Thomas Smith. And the dates of their travel from Lancaster to Westmoreland County to Salzburg tied in with the rest of the family on that. And the twist of it is their son, I think it was Sam Smith, was the executor of William Robinson's will when he died on that. They settled to the east of Salzburg, right to the east, probably past Point Street out that way. They had a big plantation there. Yes?
Do you have any personal narratives included in that book from the family itself or travels from Lancaster to this area?
I found a document, family document, and used that as a basis for research. Okay, so yes. It was written by the grandsons of Robert Robinson on that. So it's pretty accurate, but they were both in their 70s when they wrote it. So there were some memory lapses, but we were able to justify a lot of it. But I've been talking to other people, ancestors of the Jamesons, who confirmed that Margaret Jameson and John Robinson got married in 1766 in British America because they had a family document that said that. And I was like, okay, that kind of confirms it. But I can't, at this time, I can't confirm any marriage records or anything like that. You got to remember, this area really wasn't developed until 1769, when the Penns opened up, the Penn family opened up the land office here. And that's when a lot of people came out and did what they called tomahawk surveys, staked out their property on that. But a lot of them came here and then left because the Native Americans were attacking the civilians, and a lot of them went back east. So if you read Craig Pennington's book, West of the Alleghenies, that's what happened to Fergus Moorhead and his wife. They got attacked, went back, and then came back to Indiana County
Did you
later.
find any relationship between Fergus Moorhead's family and the Robinson family? Was there any contact? I don't know the context of the years.
It's a different era, yes. Fergus was a lot, probably a couple decades ahead of the Robinsons.
Okay.
Fergus Moorhead came in the 1760s, I think.
Generally thought of as kind of a founder of Indiana.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, he came in the 1760s and left, and then came back.
Wasn't he captured by Native Americans taken to Canada?
Yeah, he did, yes. And it was funny, is one of the things here about the trails from here to Quebec, and that's what he had to hike with 2 saddles on his back.
Right.
The Indians made a march to Quebec with that, on that. So yes, but it's a different era, different decades. The Robinsons really didn't settle here. They bought the York lands 1786. Did not move to Indiana County to 1794. And I explain in the book the reason for that is his youngest brother died in 1782, and Robert Robinson was the guardian and executor of his children. And he didn't want to leave his children, his brother's children, until they were of age, and that was 1794 on that. They lived, they had another settlement, I don't know if you're familiar with, it was called the Big Sewickley Settlement. And it's not in Sewickley, it's in Westmoreland County. If you know where Pleasant Unity is, it went from Pleasant Unity to South Greensburg. And it was a large settlement of Germans, Scots, Irish on that. So both John Robinson, Robert Robinson, and William Robinson had plantations there on that. And then John died 1782, and then William convinced his younger brother Robert to buy property here in Indiana County, which they did. In all those years they came out and started clearing, and then went back to Westmoreland County for the winter on that. So when John Robinson's youngest son became of age, Robert Robinson moved his family along with his brother back up here on that. And some of the stories too, you're going to find out how William Robinson got his family over here. It's quite interesting. It's quite creative on that. Didn't pay a dime on that. So that's why I said, you know, when you find 85 passengers that paid, and you find the other creative ways that didn't pay, it's like, why didn't everybody do that? So, but you know, it's like John Robinson. He committed that petty crime. I saw his document. It said he was being sent for life to British America, never to go back to Ireland or British England again. But he snuck back to Ireland to get the rest of the family. So it's interesting tales like that in the book, and it's just the individual stories and the hardships that they endured. And I you know, writing the book, I can imagine some of the hardships. I mean, when I drive the counties, Indiana, Westmoreland, even Lancaster, thinking about how these people survived, you know, coming over the turnpike and how they did with wagons and young children, you know, that's simply amazing, you know, that they could survive that, you know. But, well, I appreciate you all coming tonight, and if you bought the book, I hope you enjoy it, and I always appreciate feedback. Thank you. Thank you.